It's crazy to think about the fact that the first trailer for The Batman came out all the way back in August 2020, around a year and a half ago, and is only now coming out. I have to say though, I think it was worth the wait because The Batman is a fantastic movie, which does so many things right. It seamlessly weaves together multiple entirely different but equally valid takes on the early years of Batman, taking not just small details but entire story beats from The Long Halloween and the New 52 Zero-Year story, plus a lot of world-building elements and also a bit of story from the Earth 1 comics. Plus, I think the suit is inspired by the Arkham games, specifically Arkham Origins, which is also early years Batman story. It takes all these early versions of Batman and weaves them together into one cohesive story and universe, which works really, really well. What's more is that the Riddler is an absolutely fantastic villain, up there with like the Dark Knight's Joker and Two-Face as the best live-action Batman villains on screen and like the quintessential versions of those characters. He's scary and intense. I mean, there's this one scene where he's confronted by Batman and it's so intense. His plan also like unraveling before Batman's eyes in the exact way he wanted to, while also still using his riddle gimmick. Not only that, but they really delved into the riddle gimmick. The question marks were everywhere, and the riddles were just all over the place. It's not like they took the character and changed him completely. They took the Riddler, and he was still the Riddler, but also much, much more intense. It's certainly a unique take on the Riddler, but one that I genuinely enjoyed, which is also the case for Catwoman, Alfred, Jim Gordon, and of course, Batman. Robert Pattinson's Batman, or Rob Bat Bat slash Robert Pattinson, or R-Bat, whatever you want to call him. My favorite is Rob Bat Bat, is who I want to focus on here in this video the most. This isn't really a review of the Batman, it's more so a video talking about why I think Robert Pattinson's Batman is the best live-action Batman we've gotten so far. For the longest time, the definitive live-action Batman didn't really exist. All of them had something or other to prevent them from being what I would want Batman to be in live-action. I mean, Adam West is obviously more of a joke character, no disrespect to him, but he wouldn't, I mean, imagine seeing him next to Henry Cavill's Superman in the DCU. It would be ridiculous. But then you have Michael Keaton, which is respected by a lot of people, and Christian Bale's Batman as well. And for both of them, it was partially the limited movements of their suits, which makes it like seem so impossible for them to be Batman, and the fact that they could barely move. But that's not the main thing, that's not the deal breaker. What is a deal breaker though is Keaton's Batman not really having any qualms with killing his enemies, which is also obviously the case for Affleck, who had everything going for him to be the best live-action Batman in Batman vs Superman, an awesome and not limiting costume, complete with peak Batman action scenes and the darkness within him. But none of that really means anything when Batman just kills every bad guy he meets. That's not Batman. Or like, why is the Joker still alive if Batman kills all of his enemies? There are several stories and villains challenging this rule, but it always sticks because it's a core part of the character. So Affleck killing people did prevent him from being a good, definitive version of Batman. With all that in mind, Christian Bale's Batman is the best live-action Batman up until Robert Pattinson, because his movies are the best and because he didn't kill people. But there was a couple things that were missing there still. Like, he wasn't as badass as I think Batman should be, and he didn't really have like the compelling detective side of the character. Now, his movies are great. The Dark Knight is probably still the best Batman movie, but it doesn't have the best version of Batman or even the best Batman story. I think that now belongs to Robert Pattinson, who is, like I said, the best live-action Batman so far. Now, I'll admit, I was skeptical about Robert Pattinson when he was cast, not because I doubted his acting abilities. I did hear that he was a really good actor. I never watched Twilight anyway, so I didn't have any like negative bias against him. I just thought that he doesn't really look like what I picture Bruce Wayne to look like, especially with the blonde hair that he has in real life. All the way up to seeing the movie, I still, like seeing him in interviews, I thought that just doesn't look like Bruce Wayne. But that's something you quickly forget about while watching the movie because, well, first of all, he did dye his hair black, so that's one thing, but also you're immersed into the story, the city of Gotham. I mean, the city of Gotham here is so immersive. It really feels like you're in that city, where other Batman interpretations, the city didn't really feel like a real city. This one feels like it's the size of a city, it has everything a city has, and you're really immersed into it, as well as the performances of the characters. I mean, Gordon and Catwoman don't really look like their comic counterparts at all either, but it's something that I stopped noticing really, really quickly. Anyway, Robert Pattinson does a really good job at portraying a very early into his career Bruce Wayne, a Bruce Wayne who still hasn't teamed up with Superman or the Justice League, doesn't have anybody in his family other than Alfred, no Robin, Dick Grayson, no Jason Todd, no Barbara Gordon, none of those characters exist in his life, so he doesn't really have any light in his life yet. So he's still completely destroyed and broken from what happened as a kid. And I think Robert does a really good job of portraying that to the point where he almost seems slightly happier when in the Batsuit. I mean, when we see his face full on just Bruce Wayne, which actually doesn't really happen that often, he looks absolutely destroyed, which I think, like I said, works really well for an early Bruce who sees nothing but the mission. The Batman is his entire life, which is something that I really want them to focus on going forward in this universe, even if it doesn't connect to the larger DC universe. If it's just a Batman world, they could still bring in a Robin and then have him grow up into Nightwing, bring in another Robin, and Tim and Damian as well. They could have this family which gives Batman a bit more light in his life, so he isn't absolutely destroyed like he is early on into his Batman career. Regardless of that, I really like Robert Pattinson as Bruce Wayne. He also looks really cool as Batman. I mean, the costume here is incredible. I think it edges out Batman vs. Superman for having probably the best live-action Batsuit ever. The two suits are very, very different. This one is more armory. I think it's inspired by the Arkham Origins Arkham suits, maybe Arkham Origins, Arkham Knight, something like that. Meanwhile, the Batman vs. Superman is based off of the Dark Knight Returns suit, and it's more fabric-y. It's not armory, although it does protect him. It's two very different suits, and I love the designs of both, but I think this one edges it out a bit. Because, I mean, Robert Pattinson looked awesome as Batman in this movie, and he also looks really cool in the action scenes. I don't think the suit limits his movement at all. As far as I could tell, I think that he could do anything with the suit that he could do without. It's just a little bit harder probably because it's heavy, but other than that, I don't think it limits him at all, allowing him to have some awesome action scenes where you could really feel why Batman would be feared by criminals. He could easily take on multiple enemies at once, which is a given for Batman, but it's just the way he moves, the way he jumps off of a ledge or stealths through the makeshift smoke bomb that he makes near the end of the movie. He doesn't really feel human in these scenes. He feels like a giant bat, and like I said, you could see why people, or the villains, the criminals, would be genuinely afraid of him, because he has this superhuman feeling to him even though he isn't. What's crazy is that this is actually only the second film in Batman history to accomplish this, the first one being Batman vs. Superman, but this one accomplishes it without Batman killing people, which is I think even more impressive. Batman vs. Superman does have still the best Batman action scene with the warehouse scene, because that scene is so cool, but I still prefer the action here because Batman never kills anyone, and Batman just kills everyone. He throws grenades and busts people's heads open in that scene. It's an awesome action scene, but it's not a good action scene for Batman. So this movie has better action than that one. But that brings us to the no killing rule, which is something that is absolutely integral to the character and absolutely insane to me that it's been completely or mostly ignored in other Batman adaptations. The Dark Knight trilogy did touch on it, and it actually did feature it pretty heavily in The Dark Knight, but he does kill people in that movie, and he kills people in the other two movies in that trilogy as well. Not too often, but it does happen. This is the first Batman movie, not counting Batman and Robin, because it's PG, I think, and they couldn't kill anybody, where Batman doesn't kill anyone. And not only that, but he goes out of his way to, for instance, stop Selina from killing, using the same philosophy that's shown in Under the Red Hood. He also goes out of his way to save people that probably don't deserve saving, because, I mean, that's Batman. It's just a cornerstone of the character, and you can't really have Batman without it, or you can't have a definitive version of Batman without it. It's like having Spider-Man without responsibility or great power. It just doesn't make sense. It's what makes his rivalry with the Joker so great, which is why they had to put it in The Dark Knight, or else that movie wouldn't work, because Batman would just kill the Joker. It's what makes Under the Red Hood such a great story and what makes it possible. It's so much of what makes Batman who he is. It's just insane to me that it's been mostly ignored this entire time in the movies. Meanwhile, this movie uses it to perfection. I already mentioned what Batman did in this movie that portrayed that, but also it connected to the main story of the movie, where Riddler unveils the truth behind the corrupt officials of Gotham City, including Thomas and Martha Wayne, revealing that Thomas ordered the death of a reporter, or like inadvertently ordered the death. He told Carmine Falcone to scare him. Carmine took it too far and killed him, and Bruce has to grapple with the fact that his father caused someone's death, initially thinking that he was the one who ordered it, which is just such a great idea that wouldn't work nearly as well if Batman killed people. Because with this realization, Batman is now in contradiction with itself. The idea of Batman contradicts itself, because he has the one rule of not killing people, but also his whole crusade is in the name of a killer, Thomas Wayne, or who he thinks is a killer, or even an inadvertent killer. It doesn't really matter to him. It's a contradiction in and of itself, which is such a fascinating idea they did for this movie, and it just wouldn't really work that well if he did kill people, because Batman would be a killer himself, so it doesn't really matter that Thomas Wayne even inadvertently killed somebody. That was so effective. I also think Robert Pattinson did a great job in that scene talking to Alfred. It was really emotional. The acting there was great. So a great performance by Robert Pattinson, a badass costume, awesome action scenes, genuinely scary, plus a focus on the no killing rule, facing off against a great villain inside of a really compelling and immersive story, inside of a very immersive Gotham City. This is what Batman should be in live action. Every previous version of Batman was missing something or other, but this one, I don't think he does. I think this is the closest to an ideal live action Batman there is, at least for the early days. If, like, down the road he's the exact same as this, then it wouldn't really be ideal anymore, because then he should have a Bat family, he should have a Robin. If this connects to the larger DC universe, then he should form the Justice League and team up with Superman and etc. But for now, for the early years, I think this is the ideal and definitive live-action Batman, who doesn't really have anything wrong with his portrayal, his story, his arc, any of it. What is so annoying to me is that we now basically have the best live-action versions of Batman and Superman ever currently on screen, but they're never going to meet each other, which is so frustrating. Anyway, that's my review of Robert Pattinson Batman, I guess. Plus, it was basically a review for the Batman. Let me know what your thoughts were in the comments down below. If you like this video, leave a like, share, and bye.